Okay, welcome everyone to today's event on addressing water-related environmental challenges in global food production, CGIAR's approach. My name is Upeksha Hettiarachchi. I am a research analyst at the International Food Policy Research Institute, and I will be moderating the session today. This event is convened by the CGIAR Environmental Health and Biodiversity Platform and CGIAR Centers. We'll be hearing from 8 researchers across the CGIAR about innovations in their field on environmental issues arising from water use in global food production, with a focus on developing countries where the demand for intensifying agricultural production is imperative and the stress on water environments from agricultural intensification is expected to grow rapidly. We're really excited to hear from all of you, so to participate in the Q&A session later on, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat. To start us off, we have Kageli Masso, the director of the CGIAR Environmental Health and Biodiversity Platform, with an overview of CGIAR's strategy on environmental health and biodiversity. Kageli, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Upeksha. For everyone, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I would like, first of all, to thank the organizers of this Water Week, for creating this opportunity for CGIAR to showcase and CGIAR centers to showcase of the work we are doing. The theme of this week is very important in terms of bridging borders for water, for peace, and also for sustainable development, which is timely. The world is convening in Riyadh in a few months from now in December, and water will be critical at the Conference of the Parties of the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. And this is very important in terms of integrating the 3 Rio Conventions on climate, on biodiversity, and the desertification. Water has sometimes been forgotten, and I think it's the right time to do it correctly. And that is very important in managing transboundary waters. And CGIAR contributes in this area by bringing a community of practice to work on water issues. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the CGIAR colleagues who have accepted to create the time and contribute the expertise in aspects related to water management and governance, where we want the whole of the society to contribute to transform food, land, and water systems with a particular focus on water. At CGIAR, we work as a community of practice, and you see that we bring together different stakeholders within and beyond CGIAR. We work on technical and social innovation for better water management and governance. This time, we will focus mainly on food, land, and water systems, and particularly aspects related to agriculture. Engaging with global processes like today so that we can be able to provide scientific evidence that is needed in terms of informing effective policies. Collective feedback from different stakeholders. Upeksha did a good job by inviting all of you to provide your questions in the Q&A so that we can be able to hear from you and see what we need even to innovate in the way we do our science. With this, I wish you, all of us, a productive event, and back to you, Upeksha and colleagues.
Thank you. Thanks, Kageli, for that introduction. Next, we have Javier Mateo Sagasta, who will be presenting on IMI's work on water pollution and agricultural impacts. Javier is a senior researcher at the International Water Management Institute, IMI, and is the coordinator of IMI's work on water quality. He has extensive experience as agricultural engineer and environmental scientist in programs and projects aiming at the control of water pollution and the safe reuse of marginal quality water in developed and developing countries. Before joining IMI, Javier has worked on water management at research centers, in the private sector, and in the UN system with FAO as a water quality officer. Javier was the chair of the Technical Advisory Committee of the Global Water Quality Alliance and is part of the steering committee of the World Wastewater Initiative. With his work in research, development, and the private sector, Javier has forged a deep understanding of the knowledge generation to implementation pathways, vital for impact-oriented research. Thanks, Javier. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Pexa. So let's see if I can share my screen. Please confirm when this is happening.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can see my presentation in full mode?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see if I can. Okay, so you confirmed you can see it, right?
Yes, that's right. I can see your screen in full mode.
Excellent. So I'm going to talk about Imi's work on water pollution and agriculture, right? So in IMI, we work on water food systems at risk. Can you see now this slide with the system where we have pollution loads from different sources, Upexka?
I can't see your next slide, Javier.
You can, great.
I can just see. Yeah.
So we work in this type of systems at risk where we have pollution loads coming from cities, coming from industries, from agriculture, including livestock, aquaculture, crops. All these pollution loads get into water bodies, and this polluted water travels downstream and is used for food production, food processing, food preparation, for drinking purposes, for bathing purposes, putting people's health at risk, right? So we work in understanding these systems, through monitoring, water quality monitoring, and water quality modeling. And we work in providing solutions. We look for the most cost-effective combination of solutions to prevent pollution of water bodies and to mitigate health risks downstream, particularly when water is used in food production, processing, and preparation. So we work, as I said, in research. Please confirm that you can see my next slide.
Javier, I can't see your next slide.
You
I
were
can't
not
see.
able to do it.
No,
I'm
no.
not sure what happens then. So
Maybe.
could you see it now?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Now I can see.
Okay. Okay. So this was the system I was talking about. So this is the type of water food systems at risk, where we have pollution loads from different sources, polluted water traveling downstream and being used in food production, processing, and preparation. And as I said, we work in understanding these systems and finding the most cost-effective combination of solutions, both in terms of policy and practice, to prevent pollution and mitigate health risks, right? So we work not only in research, right, through water quality monitoring, modeling, health risk assessments, solutions for safe use of marginal quality water and pollution control, but we want and we increasingly work to make sure that our research is uptaken, that our research influences policy and practice. And we increasingly work in policy and stakeholder analysis and mapping, in a stakeholder engagement and facilitation to make sure that we co-develop solutions with our partners, and that we work in training and capacity development to make sure that individuals and institutions have the capacities to uptake research and translate that into policy and practice. And we work increasingly also in science communication to make sure that the results of our work on water pollution and agriculture reach as many people as possible. We do that internally in IMI with more than 30 researchers with expertise on water pollution and agriculture. We have modelers, we have people that work on water quality monitoring, people that work on business models for the safe use of marginal quality water, etc. These people is in different countries in the global south. We have had in IMI already more than 120 projects that address these topics in the global south in the history of IMI, but we have now 18 of these projects ongoing. And we have more than 300 information products, publications. If you check in CGI space, where the CGIAR uploads all our publications and information products, you will see the number of products that we have in there. If I have to highlight few, I would like to highlight these three that you have in front of you. One, I mean, and all of them happen to be collaborations with FAO. One, the one on the left, is a book called More People, More Food, Worse Water, where we made a global assessment of water pollution from agriculture and summarized the key policy solutions and technical solutions to address the problem of water pollution from agriculture. Then we have another book, a little bit more recent, which reviews the risks for water quality related to agriculture. And we review also the risk mitigation options we have to address such risks. And another one that I wanted to highlight is this source book on water reuse in Middle East and North Africa that we recently published, where we provided a regional overview of the state of water reuse in Middle East and North Africa. We characterized in detail some success stories so that other countries can learn from success. And we have a number of chapters also on how to do things, thematic guidelines for more and safer water reuse in agriculture. So all this is just to provide a flavor of what we do in the field. We, of course, also work with other CGIAR centers, and you will hear about their work in similar fields subsequently. If you want to know more about what IMI does in the field of water pollution and agriculture, please reach me or visit our website in iwmi.cgir.org. Thank you very much. And over to you, Opexa.
Thank you, Javier. Next, we have Ibrahim Wanyama, who will be presenting ILRI's work on pig manure management for improving water quality in Uganda. Ibrahim, you can go ahead and share your slides while I introduce you. Ibrahim Wanyama is an agroecologist with a background in agronomy and soil science. His research focuses on the intricate processes of nutrient cycling that influence greenhouse gas emissions and the dynamics of nutrients within soils and manure. He's particularly interested in developing target crop livestock systems that promote sustainability for both the environment and human populations. Ultimately, his goal is to convert livestock manure from a waste product into a valuable resource. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ubeski. Yeah, once again, I'm Wanyama Ibrahim, and I work with the International Livestock Research Institute. I'm here to share with you our work, which we have been doing on manure management, and also in relation to one of the aspects is water quality. Yeah, so I said I work with IRRI, that's International Livestock Research Institute. It's one of the institutions in the which are part of the CGIAR consortium, and we have centers in 14 countries in Africa and Asia, and we work in 6 main thematic areas: animal health, feed and forage, livestock genetics, policies, impact at scale, and then sustainable livestock systems, and that's why I work. So under the sustainable livestock system, we have the Mazingira Center. Mazingira is a Swahili, it's in Swahili language, and it means environment. And that's the center where like I'm based. And at this center, we have a state-of-art lab with experts who work in various environmental issues, including greenhouse gas fluxes. We do analysis of plant, soil, manure, like analysis, and then we also do water quality. We have meteorological stations, and then we also do nutrient cycling, which is related to pollution from manure. And then we use several approaches to do our studies. We do literature reviews, focus group discussion. We do interactions with several stakeholders, and also we do field surveys, and then we do experiments, and then experiments in the field and also in the lab. So that's about IRRI. So for the work that for the manual work in Uganda, is one of the case studies, but we have also been doing several studies on manure management from different countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, and Tanzania. So here what we are seeing is the generation of manure from these countries is increasing and is projected to increase further. And this is due to increasing livestock populations. But if this manure is handled well, it can be used to restore soil health. It can be a source of clean energy, and also like a media for growth of worms, which can be fed to livestock as proteins. However, if the manure is not handled well, it can lead to air and water pollution through nitrate leaching, erosion of the manure into water bodies, ammonia emissions, which further cause acidic rains and loss of biodiversity, and also greenhouse gas emissions. And then also manure has health risks. If the animals are infected, the disease can be transmitted through manure to other livestock and also humans. And then also because there's a lot of misuse of antibiotics, we have a risk of potential development of antimicrobial resistance. So IRRI started some work on manure management, and the issues that we identified at first was limited studies on manure management. This was from a review which we did, and then also there are no clear policies on manure management, and the health aspects, which are very important, are not covered. And then also manure in most of the economies is considered as a waste. So this means manure is disposed into the environment, and it can cause what environmental pollution. So from that, we did several baseline studies. We have done baseline studies like in Uganda. And in these studies, we make sure we cover all the aspects of manure management. And then from these studies, we have observed that in most of the value chains, the manure management is very poor, it's suboptimal, and it's liable to environmental pollution. And we also observe that the reasons why we have poor management practices, especially among smallholder farmers, is they lack information on how to manage manure. And then also they have labor constraints because they already have other enterprises. So it's difficult to divide the labor. There is labor constraint. And then also the policies are not conducive for proper manure management. So
Sorry, I do have to stop you there so we can move on to the next presentation. Sorry. But maybe you can talk more about it in the Q&A session. So next we have Hilda Pius Luoga. So Hilda is a registered professional environmental engineer and environmental scientist. She has a MSc in Environmental Science from UNESCO IHE Delft Institute for Water Education with over 20 years of experience in environmental management and biodiversity conservation, currently serving as a project development officer at the Lake Victoria Basin Commission under the East African Community. Her key role includes planning, coordinating, and overseeing the implementation of various projects within the Lake Victoria Basin. Go ahead, please, Hilda.
Are you seeing my presentation?
Yeah, I can see your presentation. I think we've lost Hilda for now, so maybe oh, Hilda's back. We on mute, Hilda. And we can't see your screen.
Sorry about that. I see, yeah, the Lake Victoria Basin, as you can see, the lake water is shared by 3 countries, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda, and Rwanda and Burundi are contributing in the large catchment area. The population in this basin is about 45 million people, and it has potential economic aspects of each: fishery resources for export and domestic, mining, conservation of hotspot of wildlife of Masai Mara and Serengeti, rich agriculture,
Hilda,
soil.
sorry to interrupt, but we can't see your screen. Please, could you share your screen?
I have already shared. Why it is not? Oh. You can't see my screen?
No, you're not sharing.
Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I can continue talking or I can stop sharing. Then,
Yeah, I guess you can continue speaking. And
hello, can you see it?
no, we can't see it, but Hua, maybe you
Okay,
can.
let me continue in the meantime. Yeah, so the economic potential of this economic potential for the lake basin, as I said, also rich in agricultural landscape, fertile soil, and the lake is also source of the Nile River. And due to these potential resources, the East African community designated the Lake Victoria Basin as economic growth zone, therefore created Lake Victoria Basin Commission to spearhead the management of these resources. So when we talk about water-related challenges in the food production in the basin, we are experiencing of climate change, which has reduced yield up to 30%. And also agriculture has been consuming about over 70% of the water resources in the basin. We are experiencing of population explosion with projected internal climate-induced migration. Up to 40 million people are expected to be moving in this basin by year 2050. We are experiencing water pollution, as Manyama presented that issue of manure and nutrients runoff from the unsustainable land use, human settlement, and it is estimated that about 30 million people are without proper sanitation. Therefore, all this runoff has been causing sedimentation in the lake, where it causes about 50% increase of the sedimentation load, eutrophication, and water hyacinths has been is covering about 25% of the lake surface. So land degradation has also been an challenge, which has resulted about 13% of the wetland being severely degraded in the region. Overfishing has been also a challenge due to all this population explosion. So what are we doing to address these challenges? The Lake Victoria Basin Commission has been doing environment projects and programs and being implemented in all these countries that are in the basin I mentioned earlier. Therefore, we are spearheading the climate smart agriculture as one of the key technologies dealing with the climate change issues. This technology of climate smart agriculture has been reducing water usage by 30%, increase crop yield by 40% and reduce environmental impacts in that aspect. And we have been doing this with other our development partners and stakeholders. We have been able to restore degraded lands, over 20,000 hectares, and manage the catchments in the basin, such as Mara River, Kajuru ecosystem, and other catchments in the region. To summarize this, that collaboration is key to our aspects. We work with researchers and we enhance innovations and investments in sustainable management of agricultural produce through climate smart agriculture. And also we have to ensure food security and water resources conservation in
Hilda, sorry, I have to cut you off so we can move on to the next.
Finished, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Sorry for the,
Yeah, no problem. So next we have Bezait Desolen. She is a social scientist with a solid academic background and supported with over 20 years of work experience in a wide range of international development issues, including sustainable agricultural diversification and intensification, gender equity and equality, technology adaptation and large-scale adoption, water and land management, including reuse of marginal water resources, climate change, and resilience of livelihood systems and food security. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Thank you for having me and for the opportunity to speak about some of ICARDA's work on conserving and improving water quality for agricultural use through the promotion of innovative, sustainable, and integrated solutions. For those of you who do not know ICARDA, ICARDA is one of the CGIAR centers that is working in non-tropical dry areas, spreading across Asia, North Africa, East and West Africa, and it's headquartered in Lebanon. We focus on improving livelihoods of smallholder farmers, and we work in close partnership with various institutions from CBOs all the way to international organizations, research and development combined. Our research portfolio really cuts across all of the issues that dryland agriculture faces. So we work on seeds through our biodiversity and crop improvement program, where we develop resilient plant varieties that meet current and future challenges. We pioneer the where we focus on small ruminant genetics, their breeding, their health, their forage, and so forth. And also the soil, water, and agronomy component, where we develop and promote sustainable soil and water management practices. And as I said in my title, when
sorry
to work with...
Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
We can't see your screen anymore.
Oh, you cannot?
Yeah, if you can't share, maybe Hua can share his screen with your presentation.
Oh, please do. Hua, can you share it? Is he there? Did he hear us?
Yeah. Hopefully he's getting it up on the screen now.
Okay. Anyways, I'll continue talking until he puts it up. So as I was saying, we work across the different aspects of the challenges and the components of agricultural research, agriculture within the tropical dry areas. And our solutions hence come as integrated solutions. So we recognize that there is no silver bullet to enhance agricultural productivity and also at the same time work within the boundaries of the environmental conditions in the dry area. So we come at it from different components. Thank you, Hua. If you can go to the slide on responses. Hua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
It's slide.
Okay, thanks. That's great. So through these integrated solutions, we try to promote sustainable agricultural intensification that responds to the growing challenges in agriculture in the region. If you click it one more time, Hua, and this, this is trying to promote agricultural intensification and work against the growing demand and the growing trend in monocropping that is based on overexploitation of the scarce resources, including water, land, and resulting in further degradation of the resources, these limited resources. If you can click further, and here we are talking about overexploitation in terms of increasing the demand for water, increasing the demand for land, and hence bringing in even marginal water into the supply of, into the bigger supply budget, if you will, of water for agriculture. And through the sustainable integrated solutions that we promote seeds that are adapted to, for instance, salinity or heat or different diseases that are plant-based. We work on promoting agronomic solutions like crop rotation to naturally fix nitrogen into the soil and reduce the demand for chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and hence the runoff into the water bodies, and which make the quality water, the amount of water as well, that is available for downstream users. If you can click it one more time.
Sorry, I do have to stop you there so we can move on to the next presenter. I'm very sorry.
No, that's fine. This was the last slide, and I just wanted to summarize that it results in the end, these integrated solutions result in the end in reducing the demand and improving the quality of water downstream. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Dickens, who will present on IMI's work on environmental flows and river eco-health indicators. Dr. Chris Dickens is an aquatic ecologist working with IMI based in Sri Lanka. He has worked since the early 1990s on river health issues, primarily in South Africa, where he participated in establishing a national river health monitoring program. He has drafted river health guidelines for several countries and latterly has been involved in the development of the SDGs as well as other global monitoring programs. This interest in river health has also been used in development of e-flows or environmental flows of rivers, which are used to assist managers with ensuring acceptable quantity and quality of water in rivers. Please go ahead, Chris.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. So, obviously everybody appreciates that water is necessary for agriculture, but generally the relationship is seen as a fairly one-way relationship where people are considering only how much water they can take out of the environment. But I just want to speak about the absolutely vital role that the ecosystems of rivers, not just the water as a supply, but the whole ecosystem actually contributes to agriculture. So you can see all these things down the left-hand side there, the fisheries, maintaining plants for livelihoods, you've got flood attenuation, you've got minimizing waterborne disease, you've got the assimilative capacity of rivers, multiple ecosystem services which benefit people in a much broader aspect than simply providing water for crops, which is obviously one factor, but there are many, many other, and we need to consider these. So our focus then is making sure that we have a steady stream of all of these benefits to agriculture and to society. And in order to do that, it's important that rivers are kept in a good ecological condition. So to start with, we have this classification of river condition, where an A would be a natural river, where we have multiple indicators to determine just how healthy is the river, and all the way through to an E, which would be seriously modified. And the point is that when it's seriously modified, by characteristic, it is now no longer providing the benefits that society needs from a river. So it's important that we keep rivers in as good a condition as possible. And we have all these indicators of things like flow and the connectivity of the rivers, if they're broken by dams, water quality, and then there are the fish and the invertebrates and the diatoms and so on, all contribute to a healthy ecosystem. And the more healthy it is, the better the service provision we get. We also have a practice that we call the management of environmental flows, or e-flows, which are becoming very, very topical globally. And the idea is basically you have to keep enough water in a river to keep the river alive so that all these other benefits flow to society. And the top pictures there of the inner Niger Delta on a floodplain is really obvious, because you need enough water in the river to elevate the water, so to flood the whole floodplain. And in the case of in the inner Niger Delta, there are 2 million people who live on that floodplain and are 100% dependent on that flood. So if you don't have the environmental flow in that situation, all those people are then vulnerable. But the lower picture is of a more standard river channel, whereas again, you have to maintain enough water to keep the whole ecosystem alive. And it sounds simple, but it's a really complex process, because obviously users want to take all of that water out. And so we have to actually argue and provide evidence as to how much water is necessary to support all of those other benefits. So all of these things come together. Thank you very much. That's the whole idea of river health and environmental flows.
Thank you very much, Chris. Next, we have Wanjiku Gichohi, who will present WorldFish's work on reducing water pollution in fish production. Dr. Wanjiku Gichohi is a senior scientist and impact area lead for nutrition and public health at WorldFish, based in Penang, Malaysia. In her role, she provides strategic leadership and oversight in advancing research and initiatives aimed at improving nutrition and health outcomes through aquatic foods and the aquatic food systems. Dr. Gichohi holds both a PhD and a master's degree in human nutrition from Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Go ahead, please.
Right. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm just going to talk about a few of the innovations that WorldFish has promoted and that have resulted in policy change, especially in managing the water resource. So WorldFish is a CGIAR center that is mandated to work with within the aquatic food system, and that involves working with, of course, water, because aquatic foods depend on water, and this is beyond fish, right? So it's fish, snail, frog, whatever is aquatic, and I'm going to focus on fish and just talk about two innovations. So aquatic foods are, of course, important not only from a nutrition perspective, but also important as an engine for economic growth, especially when we think about, the regions that have already been spoken about previously, but particularly where WorldFish works in Africa, in Asia, and in the Pacific. There's a recent SOFIA report, State of Fisheries and Aquaculture report produced in 2024, and it shows that aquaculture has surpassed capture fisheries in production of aquatic animals, and therefore managing water resources even within aquaculture is very important, and all the attendant challenges that come with. So one of the innovations that WorldFish has been instrumental at promoting is the community fish refuge in Cambodia, and this takes advantage of the water variability across seasons when the wetlands and the rice fields are inundated with water and they're flooded with water, and then communities fish within these rice fields, and the waters then recede, and then farming continues within rice farming. And what this community fish refuges act as a place to enhance or improve stock management, so that when flooding happens again, then the fish migrate from the community fish refuge into the flooded plains, and therefore biodiversity is maintained, and this is important for communities. We'll talk about the challenges in the Q&A. The other innovation is in Bangladesh, where we promote pond polyculture, where instead of one species of fish is grown within a pond in aquaculture, we have multiple species. So we have both big species of fish, which are often for economic reasons for households, but then we have small fish that are maintained and that are important for nutrition, and that way also the households meet the economic and nutrition aspects of this. Why this is also important is previously households in Bangladesh would, when they're going through a season, would do what they call cleaning of ponds and use pesticides to make sure that the small fish that are not economically viable would be gotten rid of so that they could have the big fish. So now it's a policy in Bangladesh supported by government to have the pond polyculture system, and also in the Cambodia example, it's also supported by policy to be able to have the community fish refuge promoted. We have many other examples, but these are just key ones for, to stimulate discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Thomas Falk, who will present IFPRI's work on water governance to address scarcity and environmental pollution. Dr. Thomas Falk is a research fellow in the Natural Resources and Resilience Unit at the International Food Policy Research Institute. An institutional economist by specialization, he has done extensive research on natural resource governance in the Global South. He has worked in the fields of economics of natural resource management, multi-level governance in social ecological systems, science policy interaction, and transdisciplinarity. His recent work focuses on conceptualizing and supporting behavioral change in system transformation processes. In this context, he studies the use of experiential learning games, conceptualizing and assessing their impact on institutional and behavioral change. Go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you very much. Upeksha, do you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, but I see there's the subtitle. Okay. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to give a brief spotlight on IFPRI's work on water management and water governance. Also, just to introduce IFPRI in general, very briefly. IFPRI, as the International Food Policy Research Institute, again, one of the CGIAR institutes, of course, is interested in particular in supporting diverse actors, policymakers in different domains with rigorous policy relevant research and evidence to support the policy making and decision making. And essentially, IFPRI addresses poverty, hunger, malnutrition, ecological sustainability, climate change, and gender equality in the face of new challenges we are facing in this complex and fast-changing world. And what is very, maybe a little bit like the unique selling point of IFPRI, our key entry point are strong and fair institutions. So we are concerned in particular how markets, laws and regulations or self-organization can support addressing these challenges which I just named. Okay, so and in the context of water management, I want to give you just two examples of the vast amount of work we are doing in order to support the institutional changes in water governance. So one example are multi-stakeholder platforms as sustained, intentionally created and long-term spaces to promote dialogue, deliberation and collaboration among different actors. And we acknowledge that these actors, as we bring them together, enter this space with unequal agency and power. And in IFPRI, we are in particular interested also in understanding how these agency and power dynamics and multi-stakeholder platforms play out. Yeah, so and as they come together, they participate in the process of sharing knowledge and co-designing alternative water governance mechanisms. So it's a relatively open process. The focus is on social innovations in particular, while of course it's always in connection with technical innovations. And the general approach is closely linked to the idea of social learning. The platforms are meant to build trust and help actors to understand each other's perspective, share your own perspective with others. And in this way, it is intended to form new or strengthen existing networks in which then social innovation processes towards more sustainable, fairer, and all the outcomes we have in mind, water governance can take place. Another example, it's closely related also in the sphere of social learning, is experiential learning. We use in particular games as structured spaces to acquire knowledge by experiencing, reflecting, and experimenting. Here, we expose water managers who are facing a particular water management challenge, very often a social dilemma with social interactions in a game setting. So we expose, we condense this real life management challenge in a game setting, and then allow them to experiment with this challenge, discuss about the issue, try out different solutions first in the game, and then taking in the debriefing this experience into the real life. And the games also often allow to try different institutional arrangements, different rules. And we find evidence that these games can influence local institutions and behavioral change. And we see that the co-design process creates a feeling of ownership, trust, and stimulates commitment amongst participants to really take action. And this illustration here just shows, yeah, I'm done.
Just stop you there.
Yeah, this illustration just shows that we conceptualize this as well. And if you want to learn more, here are some related references. Yeah, thank you, Opacha.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Next, we have Anton Urfels, who will present on International Rice Research Institute's work on addressing water pollution in rice production. Anton leads IRRI's water research since last year, building on many years of R4D experience in Asia within the CGIAR. His work focuses on sustainable water management and building climate resilience across smallholder systems in Asia through interdisciplinary and mixed methods research and dialogue, and is especially interested in bridging between state-of-the-art science with local stakeholders and empowering decision makers with better data for catalyzing sustainability outcomes. Go ahead, Anton.
Okay, thank you, Bexa. And great to meet you all. I think you can see my slides, I hope. And we only have 2 minutes here, so I was thinking, what do I tell people from IRRI? So we are the International Rice Research Institute. We work mostly in Asia, but also in Africa, increasingly, as rice is growing, and you will see in one of my slides there. And one of the things that always strikes me in a lot of the water discussions coming from the crop side is that there's unfortunately still often too much disconnect between the two. So I have a simple main message, and that's really that in the agricultural sector, we are developing increasing amounts of data, and I think they can really help to also steer better discussions, better decisions on the water space. And so I want to focus on 2 pollution, environmental issues of rice production. First one is nitrogen. Nitrogen is one of the planetary boundaries, and as you can see on the upper right, there's a lot of nitrogen pollution, and as many of you know, that also has really detrimental consequences of many ecosystems, on many actors, on many users. So there's really something we need to do about it. And a lot of times, the idea is that those farmers who are really intensive are the ones that are polluting the most. But if you look at this graph on the bottom left, here we looked at several states of India. So this is an excerpt from 2 states covering around 300 million people with more than 40,000 data points. And what we see is that actually the largest pollution comes from the farmers that have high input but low output. So they're not actually very intense, very farmers in terms of high intensity systems with high outputs, high yields. They're actually farmers that don't gain that much and also still have access and use a lot of nitrogen, leading to a lot of pollution because most of that nitrogen is not taken up by the crop and lost to the environment. So we looked at what can we do in those systems from a point-by-point basis. And we find that actually if you start to increase yields to increase the uptake of the nitrogen from the system and reduce it wherever it's possible without affecting yields, that would really increase, sorry, I forgot to turn on my video, really increase yields by 8% and be able to reduce nitrogen pollution by 40%. And with some of the models we have, we can even look quite spatially specifically, like in the graph you say here, on where to do what to achieve these outcomes. So there's really a strong need to then also guide water decision making with these kind of data and make sure that there's a strong also push for showing the consequences of this pollution to not only reduce the subsidy for the nitrogen, for example, but also make sure that environmental outcomes are achieved. The other point, and this work was done together with Cornell University and one colleague called Sam Coggins. Another issue that we have is methane emissions, one of the most potent greenhouse gases. 12% of anthropogenic methane emissions come from flooded rice cultivation. Some say is the potential to reduce it is much larger than in livestock even. Those numbers vary. Definitely it's a major issue for greenhouse gases. And we do have solutions like alternate wetting and drying, where, for example, the irrigation schedule is changed, or directly seeding rice without puddling and flooding the field for so long, because the flooding of the field is where the methane gets emitted. So their solutions are there. And yeah, we can save up to 40% of irrigation water, reduce emissions by 30%. And you can see there's a lot of high intensity areas on the left here, for example. Even in Africa here, it's increasing. But we don't really have any good data, for example, on what actually is happening on water management in farmers' fields. So it's really hard to actually say how to change these practices, where to change it, and where to, and how to intervene. But we're generating a lot more agricultural data. And so in the next couple of years, we're really looking forward to use much more of that to really targetedly reduce GHG emissions and rice. So really, I want to again encourage, and I know my time is up, to really more integrate between agriculture and water management, because I think there's a lot of fruits to be harvested. So thanks a lot, and over to you, Petra.
Thank you very much, Anton. All right, so we've reached the end of all the presentations. Thank you, they were all really excellent. I'm sorry if I cut you off, but now we can start the Q&A session. We have about 10 minutes for questions. So again, if you would like to submit a question to our speakers, please put it in the chat. Okay, we don't have anything in the chat right now, but I can start off this Q&A session with just changing gears a little bit and zooming out to think about CGIAR's role in this field. So Kageli, you looked at the environmental health and biodiversity platform, which is quite top level, and Javier, you looked at IMI's work quite broadly. How do you both define CGIAR's role in global water environmental research?
Yeah, thanks, Upeksha. And again, thanks really to the colleague for the quality of what you just shared. I do believe colleagues and partners who are listening have gained something that they can corroborate with us in this future. Yeah, I see a critical role with really the work we do at CGIAR. I do believe you have listened, for example, for Chris Dickens, when he's referring to the environmental flows. And I think it's a really great contribution in terms of informing policies. I do believe a lot is happening in South Africa, for example, but it's something that we need to take up. We know that we have several parts of the world, either with the physical water scarcity or economic water scarcity. What can we do in terms of improving really the water management, and especially in some parts of the world where you have significant rains, but you have crop losses, loss to drought because of the just dry season? What can happen in terms of water harvesting? And then as we talk about the One Health, referring to connecting environment, animals and people, and try to see how really they can live in peace as we talk about living in peace, and try to see what really we can do in terms of improving quality of water. We need to produce food, but making sure that it's not at the expense of the environment. We got from Wanjiku, we heard from a colleague from IRI. So I think a lot to contribute. We look forward for really reaching out to the different participants and hope they will also reach out for further collaboration. And back to you, Adubiri, there is another colleague who want to contribute to this. Back to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Before Javier jumps in, there's a question for Chris in the chat. To what extent do you use valuation of ecosystem services for your work? Oh, another question for Chris as well. With the changing environment, monitoring under uncertainty may be a nightmare for the future. Is there any consideration for aligning the eFlows indexes, example SASS and the others? So 2 questions for you, Chris.
Yeah, it is one of the challenges that the measurement of e-flows is a fairly imprecise science, and there are multiple models, and they tend to set environmental flows at slightly different levels. So that is a bit of a challenge, and it's one of the things that needs to happen going forward, is that we need to actually align the measurement of e-flows, that we get to a common amount. Sorry, I missed the first question.
The first question was, to what extent do you use valuation of ecosystem services in your work? I think you mentioned ecosystem services in your first slide.
No, we don't approach it from a there's a whole science of evaluation of ecosystem services, where you try to give it financial valuations and so on. We don't do that, but what we do is we monitor the risk to the provision of ecosystem services by not having environmental flows present and so on. So we have a whole probability risk ranking, but we don't try to give it quantitative values in terms of dollars. It gets too complex.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris, for that answer. Yeah, I agree. It does get quite complex, but it's something that we need to do. And Javier, please jump in. We have a couple more minutes.
So thank you very much. And just to complement what Gargele was mentioning, so with regard to the role of the CGIAR, right? So we do research for development, and we are traditionally very strong in research, and we are increasingly working in this development component of research for development, meaning that we want to work and we are working towards uptake of our results, stakeholder engagement, policy influence. All this is an area that requires partnerships, right, with our key stakeholders to make sure that our research does not stay in our shelves and it translates into impact in the field. And we need to really work also, and we are already starting heavily in elevating the issue in the agenda. So take water pollution from agriculture only. Agriculture is the major role of water pollution in the developed world. It's already the major source, the most important source, and it's increasingly being a very important source in the developing world. But it does not translate into investments on the topic. So we really need to work hard in elevating the issue in the governments and donors' agenda to make sure that funding is channeled in this field as it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Javier. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We have 1 minute left, so I will wrap up the session. I think, I really like your point, Javier, on we can't keep this research on the shelves. Like, we really have to push this into policy, and that's really hopefully what the point of all of this research is for. And I would really like to thank all of you for those really excellent presentations that highlighted the great work that's happening in CGIAR today. And we'd like to wrap it up here, and thank you very much for this rich and insightful discussion, and thank you to the audience for your engagement. I wish all of you a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Upeksha, for facilitating, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.